We are live. I'm going to just post in Slack real quick. Hey guys, hold just 1 second while I let everyone know we are live. Burns and I. All right. All right, we're good. Let's get started here. All right, guys, welcome. Week 13 of the DFSArmy's Off Chalk Pod. I've got Burns273 and I am HunterSinclair. Welcome. Let's get this party started. Say hi, Burns.
Good evening, guys.
All right. Geek just wrapped up his a buff on the beat. Yeah, so Geek just wrapped up his Domination Station tutorial. Great stuff. See how he breaks down using the Dom Station, do mass multi-enter. It's all good stuff. And we had the Wolfpack and all the other pods that this week. This has been a busy week, actually, with Thanksgiving and various slates that we've had to break down. But we're going to go through game by game here and give you guys some ideas of some of the plays we're looking at, some of the a little bit different combinations and off chalk plays. Yeah, let's get started. Green Bay at New York Giants as the first game I got here on the slate. So I'll do a quick rundown of kind of like give the overview, and then what we're going to both try to do is give one or two kind of maybe off chalk stack correlated or correlation plays that we think. So it may not necessarily be a individual player who is either off chalk or like low, kind of like a low ownership play, but maybe by combining that particular player in a unique combination with the defense or the tight end or whatever, the combination is potentially a lower ownership combination that may be able to give you some differentiation on your lineups. We did this last week. I thought it was a pretty good format to kind of get off of talking about individual players, because it's so hard to really talk about like the third string, Russell Gage kind of guy who may or may not catch a pass, kind of deal. So we'll talk about those plays, but I think that this kind of gives you a little bit more to work with on a week-to-week basis of something that can let you differentiate your lineups, yet still play some quality, higher ownership plays. So for this game, I actually really like this game. This is one of my favorite games on the slate this week. So I like stacking this up actually both ways, Aaron Rodgers and Daniel Jones side of things. Daniel Jones is super cheap this week, so I kind of like that side of it a little bit more, but I love me some Rodgers. There's a couple injury things to keep in mind here. We are going to be without Golden Tate for the Giants, and I think Devontae Adams is fully healthy, so we should see him in kind of full order. But the Giants will also be without both of their starting tight ends, so we will be down to Caden Smith, I think, is going to be the guy at tight end here, and actually is one of the guys that I want to talk about as one of my kind of more kind of like lower priced options to play. I think he's a good option at tight end. I think we have quite a bit of value at tight end this week. So a lot of different options, but he's definitely going to be on my radar. Guy I want to play at kind of the low end of that spectrum. Thoughts, Burns?
Yeah, I think this is a great game for stacking options on both sides of the ball. The Giants side will be lower owned than the Green Bay side. Just that's perception. So, and some of the Dom Station percentages are showing that as well. So I do like that. I do like that call there by you. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'll be one that will have some rooting interest in the game from my Giants, but also rooting interest in my lineups for sure.
Yeah, I like Sterling Shepard here as well. He's back after his second concussion of the year, and with Golden Tate out, he should see the majority of the volume. We've seen Darius Slayton really kind of excel kind of while Shepard was out, and he's still a good threat. But he's priced up over Shepard this week, and Shepard's the volume guy there. He's filling in that slot role that he's traditionally done really well with, and can come in and get 9-10 targets per game kind of situation. So I love him at 4,900. The volume right there is tremendous. I think we're going to see that he's going to have a decent ownership percentage. I think right now we're projecting around 7%. That's not too high for me to be off of him. So I like that. If it stays that low, I'll definitely have I'll probably double the market on my ownership in him. So I like that situation there. I think all of the running backs here are in play. The one guy that I think we could talk about a little bit is, I think the obvious guys are Aaron Jones and Saquon Barkley. Barkley's been basically a big disappointment this year, aside from a few games, but he's in a good spot. It's a great matchup from a running back perspective. I think a lot of people are gonna probably play him. Let me see what his ownership's currently trending at.
Like 8% or something.
Saquon Barkley, yeah, around 8-9%. So it's still pretty low considering the matchup looks really good on paper. The DVP against the Giants is pretty favorable for the running back. So I expect that might come up some, but he's in a good situation. It's just they haven't been utilizing him like he's been as efficient. I still think he's a good play, but I like some of the guys around him a bit more in that range. Aaron Jones is great. I think he's going to be a volume machine on that side. And we've seen this kind of like ping pong. Burns and I were talking before the pod started, and then we've seen this kind of ping pong effect with Aaron Jones, where every alternating week seems to be the week that he gets his like 15 touchdown performance. So he had a bad week last week, so I don't know, can we expect a big week from him this week? So it's one of those situations. I think either way we can maybe expect a reasonable performance from Jamal Williams. So if you're thinking about playing him, I think he's maybe cash safe this week. With the volume that he gets from a passing perspective. The only thing I'll note, and Burns, maybe you can give me your kind of feedback here, but the one thing I'll note is that they definitely seems to be that when Green Bay is leading the football game, it's the Aaron Jones show, and when they're trailing, it's the Jamal Williams show. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, it's I've noticed it. I haven't really played much Jamal Williams this year, but my ownership's usually on Jones, and just hasn't been a good year for either one to like blow up in one game. So it's like both of them are not going to blow up in one game. It's like either or type situation. So
Yeah.
If it's that week where Aaron Jones blows up, all my season-long leagues are going to like it. But he's what is he at, 6,900 on DraftKings this week, and so that's a good price for him. Or he's 6,800. Normally he's a little bit higher, like 4, maybe 500 more. So it's a good price for him at this mark, and I do like him this week. I think he's in a good spot against the Giants. The Giants are porous as a defense against the run, so I like the spot.
Cool. All right. Well, I think all of these guys are playable this week, mix and match. So if you can afford Jones, play him. If you need a value play, I think Jamal Williams is, he's 4,500 or something like that. So he's definitely a guy that I'm looking at down in that very basement price range for running backs. But I would like to get up into the kind of 50 something hundred if I can in most of my lineups. But if I need the value, I can drop down there, and I don't mind taking him. I'll probably limit my exposure to a guy like Jamal Williams to like 5 to 10% of my lineups. The one thing I want to note is I ran some kind of numbers just looking back at the last 5 to 6 games, and the Packers have given up the most points to tight ends in that time period in the last 5 to 6 games that they played. Something on the quarter of like 25, over 25 points to tight ends on average in the last 5 or 6 games, which is like crazy high. Unfortunately, the Giants' tight ends are both hurt. Or I'd be like Evan Ingram, like let's load them up kind of deal this week. But it's just another little maybe nugget if you needed a reason to maybe punt with Caden Smith. That might sway you one. So other than that, let's move on to the next game. I got Washington at Carolina. So we know this is going to be the Christian McCaffrey show. You want to go first here, Burns? Give me your take on anything that's really kind of like interesting or unique, maybe combinations here.
I saw some of the cheat sheet notes on this game, and the fact that we've been loading up on DJ Moore a lot over the last few weeks, and he has. But Washington, you get ahead of them. I think this really is a Christian McCaffrey game. I'm going to have significant ownership in the guy. I think right now his ownership level is somewhat low, and I think at 19%, I think that's going to go up by lock tomorrow. So I'll have well over that for sure. But I could actually see Samuel coming out a little bit in this game and putting up some good points. And he could be a pivot off of Moore in this game a lot. But, that's kind of things that I'm seeing right now in this game. I do like the game. I don't like it on the Washington side. I think Washington, what they're going to do is their only way to move the ball is throwing the ball to, Terry McLaurin, and, we'll probably see Bradbury and McLaurin. So I don't really see any really great passing action on that side of the ball. So, it's all going to be right on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no clarity around the running game here, which is really unfortunate because this situation sits up really well for a running back for Washington to do well. But the fact that we don't really have any kind of clarity of what's going on with Geis, or we've got Chris Thompson potentially back this week. The whole situation there is literally like a four-headed monster. So it's one of those situations where it's just better to probably avoid it than try to figure out what's going to go on. But I don't know that I'd fault anybody for taking a shot with a few, but who knows who's going to be the guy, right, to actually score the points. But there is an advantage here, right, because Carolina has just been horrendous, and they'd be getting just obliterated from the rush from running backs in the last several weeks. So I think that if you wanted to speculate on one of those guys, I won't fault you there. I think that there's some potential opportunity to run some points there. But Carolina, it's the same old crew there. Nothing's really changed too much. And nothing's really popping off for me as like a unique kind of like lower ownership type play. I think these guys are all going to be high ownership. If you want to run something that's low ownership, it's going to be like not playing a certain players from this team. Like if you faded Christian McCaffrey or something like that, like not going to recommend that, but certainly on a week like this where it's a it's a very juicy looking matchup against a poor Washington run defense. Christian McCaffrey in a potential smash spot. It's a situation where if you do fade him and he has his down game, then you've got a high advantage over the field. Not having spent that 10.5K, but I think I'd rather take. In a situation like this, I'd rather be on the higher ownership side of it than the lower ownership side, just because it's a higher likelihood that he does well, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there's really any other guys here. A couple news and notes on the Washington side. We should be without. I think Paul Richardson's out for this game, so. Let me just double check mine. Yeah, Paul Richardson's officially been ruled out, and Chris Thompson is looking like he will play. But to what degree? I think he'll just end up coming in and taking over that what is it, Wendell Smallwood's role or whatever in that offense. So he is a good pass catcher. So, but it's really hard to see who they're going to throw the ball to. Or give any kind of snaps to there from a running back perspective. But Paul Richardson being out, whether that influences whether or not you want to play McLaurin or not, there's some opportunity there of those passes going to him. Sprinkle or whatever, I don't think he's a viable option tight end wise. He hasn't gotten more than like 2 passes all season, so it's been pretty useless ever since really this whole offense. I don't know, I don't see anything really that we want to talk about too much more here. Do you?
No, I just think the stack to go in this game is CMC and the Carolina defense.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. At garbage fest there. Baltimore or San Francisco at Baltimore. I think this is an interesting game. So we talked about this a little bit before the pod started. So I'll let you go first here and just kind of give your kind of perspective. I know you were kind of looking at Mark Ingram anyways here on your list. So tell me kind of where you feel like there's some opportunity to kind of get away from some of the obvious plays.
Well, one stack that I do like in this game is just running Lamar with the defense in this game.
With the Baltimore defense, yeah.
Yeah, he's basically a running back. San Francisco coming across country in this game. It's a tough game in that they have to play one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and Lamar has just been going off like gangbusters every week that he's been playing, and this is going to be a tough matchup for San Francisco because of it. And like we were talking before the pod went off, they could actually try to stop Lamar, and then that forces the ball to go to Ingram, and Ingram gets a lot of the DraftKings points this week, and could be a Millie Maker winning lineup in the winning Millie Maker lineup as a running back, and I could see that for sure in this game.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those situations where it's really hard to figure out how Baltimore succeeds so well in these perceived hard matchups, right? Like we've seen Ingram do well in difficult matchups against Rams defense, against what was the one that they had right before the Rams? I can't remember exactly, but yeah, back-to-back 2 solid defenses that he played against and scored 24 plus points. And he's had good games against poor defenses earlier in the season as well with Miami and such. But And then he's had a couple 9-point games and 15-point games and sprinkled in there. So really, it's very kind of like iffy on what's the right situation where Ingram's the right play, and it's you take kind of a chance when you play him that they're gonna, when they do that read option, that they're gonna actually hand it to him. So it's really more up to the defense on whether they gonna crash down on Ingram or they're gonna go after Lamar Jackson. So who's the bigger threat there to them? And if they feel confident in their front four or whatever that they're going to be able to stop Ingram, then he's going to go after Jackson. So,
right.
I guess the one note here that's worth mentioning is D Ford will be out for San Francisco. I think that's a huge influencer for both Ingram and Jackson's ability it's probably affects Jackson more than it affects Ingram because of his ability to get around the edge on D Ford's side of the ball. So, I definitely think it's worth mentioning here that I think will impact this game to some degree. Yeah, it's pouring rain there. Yeah, that's another. We're already going to be looking at two teams that love running the ball over 50% of the time. So I'm not sure how much the rain is going to affect the game style here. If anything, it's going to just, it may make things a bit slippier, harder to make cuts, and stuff like that. So, we might just see less total yardage, less, more turnovers, that kind of thing, if people are slipping and fumbling the ball a bit more and stuff like that. So, you could make a case that play the defenses here, play a couple of the skill running positions and be done with it, right? Like, I don't know that there's a whole lot of passing options here. I'm certainly not looking at playing Marquise Brown against San Francisco's elite, pass defense or any of the San Francisco receivers against what's really turned out to be Baltimore has really turned out to be a really good pass defense as well, since they've gotten all their cornerbacks healthy. So I don't know that you really want to look at any of those guys. Kittle might be the only option in the passing game that you could consider, but
He's iffy too. He
Kittle,
may not
right?
play this game.
What's that?
Kittle may not play this game. He's iffy.
Yeah, I thought that he was.
I'll check right now.
I had seen a note that it looked like he was going to play. That Kittle was removed from the injury report, and that so was Sanders and Debo. But
yeah, he's going to play.
Okay, yeah.
Roto-World that he's going to play.
So. Yeah, I think they're all healthy, right? They're all going to play. The one thing, I guess, one of the tight ends, Boyle, for Baltimore is not going to play, or unlikely to play, I think. So that makes me a little bit more interested in Andrews if I'm looking at a pass catcher for Baltimore. It's really just Andrews and Hurst then. So I think that, but they're going to just be, I think this is just going to be a run smash heavy game. Yeah, exactly. Buff on the beat, smash the rock. I think that this is more kind of the obvious place, but Ingram's right now coming in at like 2.5%. I think it'll probably go up a little bit from there, but like really low ownership there. So if you wanted to take a chance with a guy where everybody's going to be playing Jackson in this situation, I think you can get a little bit of a edge on the field if you want to go that route. I'm not going to oversell it because it's one of those types of situations where you definitely take a risk there. I think there's a 50-50 chance that it's a bust play as much as it's a good play, right? Like, I literally think it's a flip a coin and it's a 24-point game versus flip a coin and it's a 9-point game. So
yeah, the only downside to the Ravens rushing attack is that their center Matt Sakura went out last week, and he is on the IR. So he's a really good center for them. And so they have an undrafted free agent that's going to be manning the center position. So that could limit at least a little bit of the, that rushing attack. But I don't know. I still think that they're going to be lethal in their rushing attack with Lamar and Mark Ingram. So I'm not really all that worried about it.
Okay, that's an interesting note to make. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's move on. Baltimore, San Francisco. So we got Tennessee at Indianapolis. So yeah, this is an interesting game because we got kind of like a low total here. When I looked at this, let's see, Boyle was a full participant in practice on Friday for what it's worth. Okay, interesting. Thanks for the note there, Sean. I had seen something to indicate that he was not going to play, so I'll double check that. But yeah, check. Let's see. I had questionable for week 13, so yeah. Yeah, so we'll see if he got a full practice in, then he's probably going to play. So that's not that influences me too much. I wasn't really going to have a ton of ownership with Andrews to begin with. I think just generally I'm going to be looking at the run game here. But thanks for pointing that out. So Tennessee at Indianapolis. Interesting game. I think we got low total. I kind of was at first. I kind of glanced. I was a bit more interested in this game, and I kind of just got less and less interested in it. But I, just kind of looked uglier and uglier. But I kind of feel like this is the game that everybody's ignoring this week, just because it doesn't look very attractive. So I'm wondering if it's an area where we can get maybe a little bit of an edge by playing a few of the key pieces in it. I think the side of the ball that probably has the most advantage here is the Indianapolis side. Tennessee's been pretty horrific against really just in general. Like, they haven't been playing good defense lately. They were good earlier in the season, but it's not been great lately.
Yeah, so it's in the dome, so it's going to be a track meet again. But I would like Indianapolis side of the ball more if T.Y. Hilton was in play, and he's actually been ruled out for week 13.
Yeah.
And we already know that Ebron is out on the IR. So what I do like in this game is I like Doyle.
Yeah, Doyle looks like the obvious play on that side, especially with Cox, whatever his name is, Cox, the other tight end guy. He's questionable as well. So, really that's their only tight end that's worth anything.
Could be a lower ownership play off of their running back, Jonathan Williams. So
yeah, certainly Williams is going to be super chalk. He's up there right now, I think, just under Christian McCaffrey in ownership. Probably the second highest owned, if not the highest owned guy on the slate. One of the situations that I try to find, normally with running backs, when we're going to have a lower priced chalk running back, I tend to play those guys. Unless I feel like those they're in, they're bad chalk situations where it's like a running back that is coming into a situation that's never really produced well for running backs in that situation, or kind of vice versa, where it's they come in but they're only filling a partial part of the role that the old guy used to fill, or whatever the situation is. So looking at this particular situation, right, he's filling in for Mac, essentially, who was basically just a like a ground and pound type running back, and he's the doesn't catch a whole lot of passes. Now Jonathan Williams, I think he did catch a few passes right in the last game. He's getting involved a little bit in the passing work, but I do have a little bit of a worry that the style that they use him in, and the fact that they do have a pass catching back with Naheem, whatever his name is, Naheem Himes, is concerning because, it's a situation where like he's got to get the volume and the touchdowns, and generally on DraftKings at least, those aren't the kind of guys that we really want to play unless they're just going to dominate like Derrick Henry does from time to time with 2 touchdowns and 150 yards, right? Are we going to expect, we don't have to get that from a guy who's 5,500 or whatever, but we got to get 25 points from him, 20 to 25 points from him for that to pay off, and in tournaments. So I think he's a better cash play, I think, for me this week than he is a tournament play. I really just don't feel, it doesn't feel good to play a guy who's 20% owned, in tournaments, in a situation where this could just be like a ugly game where there's not a lot of scoring, and I don't know. What's your thought there? Like, are you feeling good about playing Williams here?
Not really. I haven't really even clicked on his name at all this week to be able to put him into a lineup. I don't know. I'm just not liking it, but what is happening with the lines right now is that it opened at a -3.5, 42 total, and it's down to -1.5 with a 43 total. So that doesn't look like a lot, but the game. So Vegas is starting to make the lines look like it's going to be more of a shootout per se. So so what who I do like in this game is I do like the passing games more than I like the running games in this one, and so that would lend me towards Doyle in this game, and I also like the Tennessee passing game in this one more so than games because Indianapolis has got a pretty good
So
run defense.
So you're
AJ
looking
Brown.
at
Let me see.
Corey Davis and AJ Brown. So what one injury note here is I think that what's their third guy? He's out this week. Tajay Sharp, I think is his name. Downgraded to questionable for week 13. So this is a late week downgrade, which is never usually good. Hamstring issue late in the week on Friday. He may play, he may not. I'm not sure, but like it's never usually good to have those soft tissue injuries late in the week. So if he's out, like he's never really that big of a factor anyways, but it does put a bit more kind of like ownership on the Corey Davis and AJ Brown to step up. They're already kind of the primary 2 receivers anyways, but just want to point that out that could be an impact there on the Tennessee pass catching side. Tannehill's been pretty good, last few weeks. So I think he could do pretty, okay here. I don't know that I really want either one of these quarterbacks necessarily, but look, I mean, if you're playing a low ownership stack type of game, like this is a game that you can get where nobody's going to stack it really. If you want to run a million make your lineup and you're going to do like a Brissett stack or a Tannehill stack here, like nobody's running these guys at their prices right now for both of them are too high in general for the type of quarterback that they are. And but you can get their receivers for next to nothing, right? Since Hilton's not playing and the rest of them are all super cheap. So like you could put together a pretty hefty stack and then load up on running backs and good defense and good tight ends and good a solid 3 running backs. So I mean, you can put together a really nice looking lineup there and have a really interesting stack. I don't know that I want to be like that crazy with it, but it's definitely one of those situations where you look for a game that nobody really can figure out what the outcome is going to be, and those are sometimes interesting ones to stack up and play. So I don't have a good take on this game, so it's one of those situations where like play at your own risk kind of thing.
For sure. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, we'll move on. I don't know that there was anything super valuable there. I think Doyle's a good call though. I like that. I was looking at the ownership for him. Let me see what.
It's relatively high at like 17%, but
Yeah, I figured he would be just due to that news has been probably around. That's really high actually, 17%. His price must be pretty low. What's his price at?
about 3,300, I think.
Yeah, so he's kind of like the default standard right now. Like everybody who plays a tight end either pays the 50 something hundred, 6,000 or whatever for the Kelsey kind of guy, where they go down to that 30 something, $3,000 to $4,000 range, or they totally punt with a 20 something hundred type of situation. That's like usually what most people do. So he's going to be the 3,000 something guy that everybody goes to. I think that there's enough options here this week that you don't necessarily need to play him if you want to avoid the higher ownership at the tight end. I generally like to avoid the super high chalk tight ends in general, just because it's a pretty high variance position, like receivers is, and really the volume that most of them get is pretty low, so that like generally unless you're talking about a guy like Kelsey or and even him, like it's, you can't guarantee you're going to get 20 plus points out of him anymore. So yeah, it's one of those situations where like I'd rather just go with a guy that's going to get be the starter, get a decent amount of passes thrown his way, and just be lower ownership, so in a good situation. All right, Philly at Miami. So Miami cheat code, right? Like this has been the rule all year, and it seems like every week we're having the same conversation about why don't we play the guys against Miami? There's some reason why we shouldn't be playing these guys, right? Like that's seems like that's the conversation. It seems like that's the conversation every week. And then they go off, right? Like last week I said, why aren't we just running tons of Mayfield, stacks this week? And it was, well, if Chubb does this, or if they get up and pull X, Y, and Z. It's one of those situations. I guess the bigger question this week is, can we trust anything of the Philadelphia offense, right? Like it's a little bit different when the offense completely sucks against the team, but we saw Philly do some stuff earlier this year that was reasonably well. They've had a murderous row of teams that they played, so can't fault them too bad for being as shitty as they are. But I don't know. It's one of those situations where it just looks like, okay, load them up again. I think it's a little bit harder with Philly's run situation, the running back situation. So it does look like, I think we got confirmation that Jordan Howard was out for this week,
Yep.
right?
He is out.
Yeah. So Jordan Howard out, definitely, block, we get Miles Sanders kind of is a bit more of an easier button to push. The fact that they have Ajayi on the team is still somewhat of a concern. We didn't see much from him last week, although I guess he'd only been with the team a few days. So, it's hard to say what they're going to do with him long term here. But certainly I could see him getting a bit more carries than he got last week. He got like 6 last week. He might go up to 10 this week or something like that. So he's going to probably, cut a little bit into Sanders' workload. So it is a concern. They're cheap, so it's not too bad to play Sanders here. But I don't know. Thoughts on that situation? He's going to be pretty high owned, I think.
Yeah, for his production the last couple of weeks, and I've played him the last couple of weeks. I'm probably going to be off of him this week, but watch it come back to burn me. So I might have what I mean by off of him is I might have very minimal amount of ownership in him, like 5%. just in case, just have him in a lineup or two. But he will not be a core running back for me this week. But like I said, he could go off this week and be the nut running back in lineups. But
Yeah,
sometimes you have to fade that chalk.
Yeah, let's see where he's coming in right now. We've got him in domination station listed at, where are you?
He's at 17, I think.
Sanders 17, yeah. So, he's right up there with Jonathan Williams, ownership wise. So like those two guys, I mean, they're basically the same price, same range. What's interesting here is that they're both high ownership for guys that are the same price, which is a little bit odd because generally speaking, when you get guys in this exact same pricing range, the ownership tends to split between them. Like you don't play both of these guys, you play one or the other. And when you have two options that people really like, like it's going to be mostly split between them, which is it was kind of weird because then you think, well, like if there was only one guy down here, is he going to be like 35% owned, right? Like if it was
Right.
just Jonathan Williams or if it was just Miles Sanders, like that's a little scary, right? So I'm not really quite sure what to make of that yet, but yeah, I do have a few like hesitations there on Miles Sanders, so I'm gonna have to see how that pans out as I start building lineups over the week. Geek I know is a Kenyon Drake believer. I like the call. I actually kind of like I like the balls actually like that call is because you kind of like he's he's saying like hey, if he's the starter, let's play him. Screw all this chit chat and talk about Chase Edmonds coming back this weekend. Being a just the whole situation with David Johnson and like his lack of production and usefulness on that team. I mean, it's insane there. But yeah, Drake's been solid. Like, and we saw what Baltimore was able to do. Now, I think that the matchup is still challenging, right? With the Rams. So, like I don't necessarily think that just because Baltimore ran all over them last week that they're just all of a sudden like a really bad run defense. So that would be my bigger concern about playing Jake, not necessarily the whole Edmonds situation as much, but I think he could produce at his price point for value. So, there's a few other guys down there in that range that you got to consider, but like I kind of like getting up to a guy like Eckler, if I can afford it, like $300 more than playing either one of those Miles Sanders or Jonathan Williams type of kind of guys. God, we're gonna have to get to this Tampa Bay thing here in a minute. Okay, all right. I'm not gonna talk about it right now, but I'm gonna have to like go against my rule here probably this week. All right, Philly, Miami. Anything else on this? Well, I guess are you going to play any Philly stacks here? I mean, are you going to like load up here, do some Wentz and? Well, I guess Ertz is out, right? So, or at least looking like he's going to be out. I think that's the big news. Is this might be the go dirt loaded up week, right?
Yeah, if Ertz is out this week, it's go dirt all the way. I think Jeffrey's in play too. You could do a triple. You could do a 2-man stack there with Carson Wentz. It'd be good.
Yeah, I don't even mind. I don't even mind a little Aguilar in that situation, right? Like I think all of these guys become viable against this Miami defense.
Yeah, yeah. This defense is just so bad that you could actually stack this up. You could even run it back. You could run it back with Devontae Parker.
Yeah, so we did get, I think, some news here. Albert Wilson will play Sunday. Jaheim Grant will be out. I think is his first name, Grant, whatever. It doesn't really make any much difference, but like Wilson should be that third receiver there. So I don't really think he's viable here, but he should have that third spot all to himself with Grant out.
Yeah, it's in Miami, so it should be you should see some decent weather, so it shouldn't be a problem with that aspect. So running it back with Miami with Devontae Parker, Wilson, you could work.
Yeah, you're not going to run any of the running. There isn't a running back here to play. I mean, like, let's be honest, Miami doesn't have a running back. So like really there's only passing options here on this side on the ball. Like, I mean, in theory, you can really run Fitz magic here against, really, I don't know, Philadelphia's, I guess their offense or their defense has been playing a little bit better recently against the pass, but they have been kind of gotten beat deep before earlier this year. Yeah, I don't know what the last few games. Let me look at my stats here on them. The last 5 or 6 games. Points allowed. Miami. Philadelphia. Eagles, okay. Yeah, so they've been pretty good actually the last 5 games. Looks like they're really have limited quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends pretty well. They have been pretty poor against the running backs actually in that time, which is a little bit inverted from what they usually are. Good run defense, bad pass defense. So it's a little bit interesting to see that they sort of flip-flopped from earlier this season to that more recently. That really basically just kind of eliminates most of the Miami team because they don't have a run. They don't have anybody from a running back perspective I want to play. And if Philly's going to shut down their pass, then there's really not a whole lot of options there. So I think this is more of just a Philly onslaught, right? Just do Philly, run Goater, run the Philly defense, like if you're going to pay up, just do the whole onslaught kind of deal. That is an interesting situation and one that I'd like to play in teams that I think are going to just be a complete blowout is go ahead and play the quarterback with one or two of their offensive weapons and then instead of running it back, run it back with the defense.
Right.
With the same defense and just stack up basically both sides of that ball where you just feel like they're going to just keep turning the ball over, getting the ball on the 20-yard line, pass for a touchdown, do it again kind of thing, and that pays off in those situations where they just dominate defensively. So something to keep in mind here, Philly has shown that they can step it up on defense like that in the past, and so this is a situation where that could happen. Cool. Let's move on. We got Oakland at Kansas City. Let's see if we got any questions here. I haven't been paying attention. Nope. Everybody's quiet. Everybody just listening along. Moonshine Crew. Who's my Moonshine Crew? I'll have to get the lowdown there. All right, cool. Let's do Oakland at Kansas City. So this is kind of the big game, right, on the slate. At least the highest total. We got typically this is, teams going into Arrowhead are this is one of the hardest places to win on the road. So just into a really difficult situation here against a now healthy, or let's say healthier Kansas City offense, who's been playing pretty good defense recently, especially against the pass. They really suck against the run still. So, the obvious plays here, you got Jacobs on the Oakland side is really the only guy that you could consider. I think Waller maybe. He's a little pricey, but I don't really want any of the pass catching options other than maybe him. And then on the other side, right, loaded up. Kansas City's, you got Mahomes, you've got, Kansas City has not run the ball hardly at all. I think they still are running it like something crazy, like 70% pass to run ratio. I'll have to double check that, but it's still pretty high as far as like their passing to run ratio. So this is, obvious spot to like load up on Mahomes, and like these guys are all going to be super high owned. Mahomes, Hill, even probably guys like Watkins, and I don't know if you want to go down to Hardman type kind of guy. He gets like one catch per game, but it's usually for like a 50-60 yard touchdown. So
right. So in this game, we know Damian Williams is out, so that's a given. So that makes LaShawn McCoy viable in this game, and he's a good option in this game. Let's see what Oakland looks like against the run. So they're middling against the run to bottom of the NFL and against the run. So LaShawn McCoy is a good option here, and I'm actually going to add him to my player pool this week because of the fact that Damian Williams is out. But the stacks that I really like in this game is Tyreek Hill, Mahomes. It's going to be very difficult to afford Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill. So with that, you could go down to Sammy Watkins and be fine in this one as a second, that secondary option there. So I don't know. I like this game a lot from stacking options, but I'm not.
Yeah, you can't play. Unfortunately, you can't stack
Options on the.
Yeah, you really can't stack this game as far as Mahomes and his primary weapons and get Christian McCaffrey. That's impossible to do this week just due to the high price point for Hill and Mahomes and Kelsey. But yeah, I mean, like it. If you're gonna run a Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill type stack, like those are your studs. So you can do it, but you're gonna have to sacrifice, and take a few of those 5K running back situations,
right,
to make that work. So, and you're still gonna be punting at in probably one or two of your other kind of lower wide receiver and or flex spots. So it's gonna be challenging with this particular situation. So I think you kind of have to go one or the other if you're going to do Mahomes with either Kelsey or Hill,
right,
rather than both of those guys, which is usually the way to go, anyways. But at least so far this season. But I kind of feel like we're in for a like an on brand, make his stamp kind of 5 touchdown type of Mahomes situation here. It feels like we've been waiting for that game for a while since he gotten injured, and I think he's getting a bit healthier here. He's in a like plus matchup. It just like it seems like everything's lining up for that to be the case, right? And he's like, the playoffs are in sight. He's gonna have to start putting the kind of pedal to the metal here and showing back kind of his old Mahomes self, and I think we might see it this weekend. So yeah, so David's mentioning the weather here in Kansas City. So yeah, 20 plus mile an hour winds for 2 days now. anytime the winds get up over 20 mile an hour, you know, there is some concern. Let's see, Darnold or Winston will winds affect him. Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to get all of the weather in the Weather Channel tomorrow morning. So you guys need to check that before you lock in your lineups and make sure that you have some pivot opportunities lined up and ready to go in the event that, you know, like a certain particular weather situation, if it ends up occurring, is going to influence you to go lower ownership or higher ownership in a particular situation. So what I typically do is, in a situation where, let's say, I was concerned about the weather in Kansas City, if it was going to stay at 20 to 25 mile an hour sustained winds or something like that, that I was going to get off of Mahomes and Hill and maybe play Kelsey or something like that solo, then I'll run tonight. I'll run two different like setups and have those lineups ready to switch out so that I can just do it without having to scramble at the last minute. Right? It's always good to know a situation going into it before it happens, right? So you don't have to be, you know, it's different situation than like all of a sudden some guy is like got injured during warm-ups or something like that and is out, and we all have to like you know, scramble to change it up, and it like screws everybody's lineups up, and we're all, you know, you got to go in and hand, you know, change for 150 lineups is like really difficult. You know, in these situations where we have a whole like day ahead of time to prepare, it's easier because you can just prepare both scenarios, right? And say, okay, if this happens tomorrow, then I'm ready to go. So that's how I would say. I'm right at this point. I'm not too concerned. I'm not like not playing any of those guys, but I'm going to keep my eye on that. There's a few games that I think, if the weather ends up being worse or better than expected, it may influence me to change kind of somehow some of how I'm playing. But check the weather station, the DFS weather station before in the morning, and kind of make your changes from that. So that was a long-winded explanation. Hope that helped. I guess Rag also had Darnold or Winston. Will wind affect them? Conley or Kurt? Patriots or Jets? Right? Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of potential. You know, Giants game, yes. San Francisco game, wet, yes. Like, there's a lot of weather situations that are going on this week. What I'll mention is a lot of people overreact to weather. You know, like put more emphasis on the weather than, like, these teams are all used to playing in various conditions of weather. So ones that we have to really concern ourselves are with severe kind of rain situations where it's really just like a sloshy mess and just like really difficult to play in, heavy snow, or really high winds, right? Like, those are the situations that really are going to affect. And until they become extreme, they don't really have that big of an impact. It's very negligible. So, all right. Let's see here. I think we talked about everything on the Oakland and Casey side. Was there anything on that side? What's your take on Jacobs? Where did you have him listed in your list? I know he's going to be super high chalk play this week.
He is my fifth highest projected running back on the slate. So
okay, so pretty high. You're going to have a pretty good ownership of him. You're going to be over the field.
Yeah, I'll probably be over the field. Let's see what his ownership is right now on the draft on DS. He is at. This is not going to stay the same, 5.91%. So he's, if that does stay the same by like noon tomorrow, I will probably have a really good percentage of ownership in him. Right now, I'm looking at 25%. If that stays 6%, I'm going to probably bump it up to 30 to 35% in him.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any way that that's going to be close to where his ownership is. I mean, I think he'll probably come in around 20%. Is my guess. But you know, so the situation here with Jake he's based off of volume, right? He doesn't catch a lot of passes. The thing is that John Gruden, he plays this like old style of football and runs the ball. And like, I know that there's a concern about if they get behind that they're going to be playing this catch-up game and he's not going to be involved as much, but they don't stop running. Like, John Gruden runs the ball. Like, he doesn't stop running just because they're behind. So I don't know if I totally agree with Kevin on that one. I think that this is a solid place to play him. I don't generally like playing guys like this, but it's about as good of a position as we saw from maybe Derrick Henry last week, and I think that he could smash here. So I'll definitely think I'm going to be playing a good amount of him this week. I'll probably be over the field as well on him. I really don't think that there's too much opportunity against this KC defense other than to run against them. So I think they're really just going to be forced to do that. I don't know that Carr is going to have much success doing anything else. So
yeah.
All right, cool. Then let's move on. Tampa Bay at Jacksonville. So this is one of the games that actually I'm pretty heavily interested in this week. I've got a few games. This is probably one of my top three. This sets up really nicely as a kind of back and forth type of situation. I think both teams really have shown that they can't defend really anything. I mean, Tampa Bay's been good against the run, and that's about it. And the rest of it has been pretty trash on both sides. So, I don't know about Fournette in this situation just because of how good Tampa Bay has been, but he catches like 7 to 10 passes thrown his way each game. So he's sort of been a pretty good receiver for them. So you could get enough volume there to make up for the fact that they're good against the run. But there's a couple injury notes here. I think we've got. Let me pull that up here. Yeah, it looks like safety for the Jaguars will not suit up. So Ronnie Harrison won't be out there, and their linebacker Jack will also be out. So they're going to be missing a couple of their really key guys on the Jacksonville side, which really here we go. It's up probably best for RG2 or RJ2, I should say. Ronald Jones. And if you guys have followed me at all on any of the kind of stuff, you know that I don't play Tampa Bay running backs. And I might actually have to break my own rule here this week. I have not played a Tampa Bay running back the entire season, and it served me pretty well. And same thing with Detroit. And I'm actually considering playing Ronald Jones here. And I talked me off of this ledge because I don't want to play him, but it's a situation here where like the numbers tell me I should play him. Jacksonville's crappy against the running back to begin with. They're out of two of their main guys that are going to cover a guy from like a passing situation, or or even really just kind of once he gets into that kind of break, that first kind of defensive line. I mean, you could also like consider the tight end here, but like really the I don't know. I mean, maybe I play Brait or OJ Howard and avoid the whole situation. So like I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk you off that ledge.
No, you want to play Ron Jones?
He's looking to be in a good spot. Just was a similar spot that Tennessee blew up last week. Derrick Henry blew up in this spot last week. So it's a spot you can go right back to if you feel the need to.
Yeah.
And it makes Ronald Jones more cash viable than anything, I think. And you can even put him in your high dollar single entry lineups if you wanted. It's a good spot there. It actually is a pay down option for the ability to get Christian McCaffrey in there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to have to run him. I mean, I don't know what ownership I'm going to put him in it yet, but yeah, he's going to be in the mix, unfortunately, for me and my sanity. I guess my bigger question here is who's the guy? Who's the Godwin? Is it the Godwin or is it the Evan? Because we got a couple options here. We've got, like Godwin finally goes off last week. Did we lose Burns? Sounds like he might be in the. All right, he'll be back in a second, guys. I'll go look at some of the notes while he's out.
Sorry.
No problem. Like in the Browns D, a lot of Steelers are out. Browns are playing good. Is this a good choice? Okay. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the. Did we talk about the Steelers today? No, they're the last game on the slate. We're gonna talk about that here in a minute, Togas. Yeah, I mean, I think both the Steelers D and the Browns D are in play this week. Both teams are going to be actually without several players. The Browns are without several defensive players as well, so something to consider if you're going to play the Browns D. But we're going to get to that game here in a couple, about 1, 2, 3, 4 games later. I was asking what's your thought here? So aside from Ronald Jones, like if we think that he's going to do well here, I want to play Winston. I want to play Godwin. I want to play, am I playing Evans or Godwin? Am I playing Brait or OJ? Like I'm conflicted,
Yeah, this this teeter stuff with with Evans and Godwin has been frustrating this year. Last week it was Godwin that got all the, he went off, and prior to that it was Evans. But take a look and see how they are matching up in terms of against each side of the field on the wide receivers here. Let's see here.
Yeah, so my gut tells me that it's another Godwin week. That's kind of where I've been leaning. He's a bit pricier than Evans this week. 7,700 instead of 6,900. So, I mean, I certainly like the price of Evans this week. He's had 3 games now where he's not produced. 6, 8 targets last few games, and then before that 16, 12, 17. So I don't know what's going on with, this is crazy. I'm not sure what's going on here. Why do they all of a sudden switch like this? It's super frustrating. It's hard to know, from week to week what's going on. They did well against Atlanta with the situation that they did, and Evans didn't do hardly anything.
Right.
So, looking at Godwin, his production, he had that huge game. I'm not a huge believer in trends, trying to find patterns or trends and stuff like that. But if you are kind of looking for that kind of thing here with Godwin, back earlier in the season when he blew up against the Rams, for 44 points, he followed that up nicely with, a 35-point game against New Orleans, then Carolina, and then it goes opposite of whatever Evans is, right? It's one or the other. These guys never go off together. So, you got to pick one or the other, and then I usually just go with one of them, and it's been pretty disappointing because like the weeks that you don't pick it right, it blows up all those lineups. And I don't know, maybe this weekend I'm just going to split my ownership between both of them and
Right.
just be done with it. That way I don't have to worry about it. And but like, I mean, it's a pretty good likelihood that one of the two of these guys goes off, right? So
Another option you can do is just stick it to just keep them with Winston and not worry about having them in other lineups. And if they go off, your Winston lineups go off, or your Foles lineups go off in this, and just keep it that way. But because it's so hard to predict who's going to go off in week to week with these wide receivers. So
yeah,
you can do that in the domination station by just allowing them to stay with either Winston or Foles. So
yeah, Winston's been running a decent amount too recently. He's getting you 30, 40 yards a game now, which is maybe not that much, 20, 30 yards a game, but still, that's another 3 or 4 points per game on the ground that he's getting. Of course, he's fumbling half the time, so I think that negates some of that. But give and take, the guy puts up good fantasy points regardless, like of however many interceptions and or fumbles he does each week. So he's a solid 20+ point quarterback each week, it seems like. And at 6,300, not ridiculous to fit in there and get in some decent lineups. So so I like that situation. I don't know about like if we think that the Ronald Jones thing's a good play, like that gets me a little bit more not as interested in the Winston stacks. So I'll probably have to alternate those and play Ronald Jones not in Winston or kind of like the game stacks here, but potentially maybe in the if I were to do a Jacksonville. See, the problem is that I'm not doing a Jacksonville stack. Like I'm not going to do Foles or Minshew or whatever kind of situation. So like I wouldn't like normally if I was going to do the other side of that, I would run Ronald Jones maybe back as an alternate type of stack. But since I'm not going to do that, I'll probably just have to run Ronald Jones in my non-game stacks related to Tampa Bay and Jacksonville.
Yeah, and you can run Ronald Jones with either Evans or Godwin in this game, and that'd be your off the chalk stack. So,
yep,
could do that.
On the Jacksonville side, so I mentioned some of the injuries on their defense. The wide receivers, like for against Tampa Bay, that's like been one of the other cheat codes right this year. Is like, so obviously we're gonna have some ownership here in these guys, but they're it's pretty like spread out, right? So we don't really know who the guy is, to get ownership of. So I don't know if you have a take on who your favorite is here, but
I got Shark as my
Conley, Westbrook, and Chark, right? So 6,600 for Shark, 5,000 for Westbrook, and 4,500 on Conley, and even Keelan Cole. So they run so much, so many. They run a pretty high volume of plays, and they run in a lot of these 3 wide sets. So Conley's getting a lot of play. But Keelan Cole is getting like a good 30 to 40 snaps a game as well, right? So like he's like another potential possibility in here. I mean, he's getting half the volume of these other guys, but he's like the third option, but he's getting mixed in at the other 3 guys are still getting like full-time volume almost, like 60 to 70 snaps a game kind of deal. So you'd almost have to like throw him into the mix as well of an option. But I know that it looks like probably a lot of people are going to that Conley just due to the price, but Westbrook seems like an option as well because he's only about $500 more. And then Chark is your kind of like, he's like the big, he's the guy that I think you'd want to pay up for, right? Because he's got that 35 plus upside potential. He's only done that twice though this year. I mean, I guess that's pretty good, but it's pretty like up and down though, man. That's a little concerning. Just looking at his numbers: 27 week 1, 39 in week 5, and then 33 in week 11. So 3 weeks out of 12 where he's salary, and the rest of the weeks are all below 20. Like those high teens aren't good enough anymore for a guy that's priced at 6,600. They were earlier in the season when he was 4,500, but not now. So you got to be confident that he's going to get you that, the like over 20 points. I don't know. What's your thought there? Because it seems like, he'll have these good games and then he kind of, has like kind of a mediocre game. Even the Jets game, right, where he got 12 targets, he got 20 points, but you kind of want a bit more than that. And he didn't kill your lineup, but he didn't like win it for you.
Are we talking about Shark?
Yeah, Shark.
Yeah, so I have DJ Shark as my third highest projected wide receiver on the slate this week.
Okay.
Tampa Bay is cheat code for a lot of fantasy goodness for wide receivers. And so I really like him as a good option this week. So I'm going to have ownership in him. It's just not going to be stacked up with Foles in this one, but he'll be a run back guy. And Winston stacked with Godwin and he's looking pretty good. I don't really have Conley as an option until I get further down in my projections. And D.D. Westbrook is kind of middle of the road for me in terms of my projections. But I'm gonna have them all keyed in tomorrow. So in terms of where I want everything to fall, in terms of percentages and stuff like that, I'll be keying those in more closely tomorrow. But as it stands right now, Shark is he's my top option on that Jaguars team.
All right. Oh, that's fair. What time are the kids going to bed?
Mine are already in bed.
Did you guys hear some kids in the background? Because I'm not sure. My kids should be in bed. It's 10:30 here, so I think that might have been my wife in the background if somebody heard something. All right, well let's move on here. I think we've covered this game pretty well. I like the Shark call. I'm a little concerned just due to his kind of up and down nature that he may not pay off, but I think that definitely if there is a situation where it's a slam spot, this is a great Tampa Bay defense to do it against. It kind of makes me interested in Conley a little bit more because of the deep threat ability that he offers. But we'll see. Shark's kind of been that guy as well. So I like the price saving. So for Conley, 4,500. Let's go. Where's my sheet? Sorry. Give me a second. I'm reshuffling. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Next game is Jets at Cincinnati. So, yeah, we got low scoring total here, 41 point over under where I had it. Jets are favored by 3.5. So, so this is an interesting game as well. I don't have this super high up on my list, but it was one of the ones that I highlighted of the low scoring totals that I had a little bit of interest in from a kind of just game stack perspective. Um, and I might have a bit of ownership here from a kind of just game stacky type of situation. These, what I look for a lot of times on a week by week basis is a situation where there's like some anomaly or some kind of situation that doesn't match what either like the public or something else. This game with Cincinnati and the Jets both being so bad defensively, they stack up as opposing bad defenses. Now they both have pretty bad offenses as well, which is kind of like the reason why the industry is saying, hey, this is a low scoring, crappy kind of game. But I tend to like look at the defenses in these situations and say like, hey, if these defenses aren't really stepping up and like allow a generally bad offense to excel, that's a situation where we can get some advantage and have like maybe some game stacks that are going to be lower owned, and there's still a lot of potential to run the score up. And this is already like being projected at a fairly close game, between the Jets here and Cincinnati. A couple of the news and notes, right, with this game is Dalton should be the starter. Hopefully, will finish the game. I guess there's a risk there as well, but that is the plan. Is that Dalton should be at the helm of this game, and then Sam Darnold's been coming on pretty strong lately as well on the Jets side. So I think that there's some fantasy goodness here, especially in the passing game, which is really what I'm looking at. When I look at these potential shootout types of games. What do you think? My read here? Am I off base? Jets, Cincinnati.
No, I think it's a good read. I think with Dalton coming back, he's at home. Dalton does better at home, per se, and he does better at the 1:00 games. So I can see this as being a good option. He's 4,700, which basically is free for a quarterback on DraftKings, and so he makes a really good pair with Boyd. So I can see that, and I
don't even know what DraftKings is thinking. Got Sam Darnold priced at 6,100. It seems ridiculous to me.
He had a blow up game.
Blow
up game.
But still, like, he's done really well the last few weeks. He had 21 points, 26 points, 31 points. So, I guess I get that, but he was priced 5,800, 5,700, 5,800. So, they bumped him up a few hundred. But I guess I can see that. They're pricing him up due to that. He's playing Cincinnati. So, it still seems a little pricey, when you can get the other side of the ball for so cheap. Maybe that's why I'm looking at it and going, I don't want to pay that much for Darnold. But I probably will run a few Darnold lineups and a few Dalton lineups in this situation just because I want both sides of this.
I'm not sure if I'm going to run too many lineups with Darnold in them, but I do like the Dalton construction more. You can even run Dalton, Boyd, Tate, or Dalton, Boyd, and Eifert and be fine in this game.
Yeah, so Yeah, so that's the challenge, right? Is like who's the pass catcher here that we want to target on the Cincinnati side, because that's the area that we want to really target against the Jets. But I think for me, I think it's Boyd. Even though he's the higher priced of the group, and he hasn't done super great lately. He just had a good game last week, but with getting Dalton back, I think he's going to look for his more kind of familiar targets. And Boyd seems like kind of that underneath safety net for him that he's going to feel comfortable with. But I don't know. He may come back and just want to start airing it out as well, which isn't really going to do much for Boyd if he wants to throw deep kind of deal. So,
Right.
I'm not really sure how that's going to go, but probably mix it up a little bit to get some options there. On the other side of the ball, I think, did I see something about Robbie Anderson? Let me look and see my notes here if there was something around news and notes. No. Ravens. Nope. I thought I had seen something on Robbie Anderson, but yeah. So we've got Crowder, Anderson, Demaryius Thomas. Oh, it was Demaryius Thomas, I guess, had a questionable tag on him. Yeah, it looks like he'll probably play. He's been playing through kind of like a lingering hamstring issue for several weeks now. So I don't think anything's changed with that. So he should get his normal workload, but nothing, like he's sort of this kind of middle field type of pass catcher. He gets a decent volume thrown his way, but it's not really turned into too much, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I kind of like Crowder a bit here for the volume. I think Le'Veon Bell is maybe in play from a volume kind of up against Cincinnati poor kind of run defense here. He still gets a decent amount passive volume. Let me see what he's done last couple of weeks, because I think Geek had mentioned something about him not getting so he's not super cheap, and you got to kind of, he like Jacobs is kind of like the other guy that's going to suck up a lot of the ownership around him. Yeah, so he's still getting, it kind of goes up and down, but yeah, he's gotten less volume pass wise recently, 4 to 5 in the last few games. Target wise, not as much
Right.
as he had earlier in the season. I guess you can go back to week 9 where he got 9 targets. Certainly in games where they've had maybe some easier run matchups, like Miami, he did okay, 20 points. That's not really what you really want to get from a guy that you paid 7,700 for. So, again, he didn't kill your lineup, but he really hasn't surpassed that 22 mark all season. So it's
Right.
pretty consistent, though. Like I consider him maybe more a cash play than anything. He's a pretty consistent, 15 to 20 point running back. Yeah, not really sure what I want to do with Bell there. I think it looks like a good matchup, but not super confident in the way that they've been playing him based off the stats. The tight end, though, for the Jets, I think is in play.
Ryan Griffin.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's he priced at? I'm looking for him.
He's at 4,300.
Yeah, actually, that's a little bit pricey.
That's
As well, but from an like ownership perspective, or from a matchup perspective, the Cincinnati not very good against defending against the tight end or the wide receivers. Or I'm sorry, or the running game. So actually, looking back at the last few weeks, they've been better against the run than they had been earlier this season, and teams have been beating them more through the air recently. So that could be due the last 5 or 6 weeks. They've been without one of their kind of main cornerbacks. What's his name? Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
So that could be an influencer of why they've been kind of getting a little bit more beat up in the last few games, but something just to consider there. I don't want to like over analyze this particular game. I think that there's some opportunity here. I'm going to be stacking it up a couple different ways. I think this is going to be my kind of like more off chalk stack kind of game to run this week. So I'll keep it at that ownership, but I like kind of mixing it up here, a few of the different options, and just kind of running a few different scenarios, and then I'm going to load up with my running backs so I can get some of my higher priced guys from other teams by doing it. Any other thoughts there?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. But this one, look, with the Ravens defense, we had a question in there about Ravens defense. Was it covered? So with the Ravens defense, San Francisco coming across country in this game, the Ravens defense is definitely in play. And if you really wanted to get a little bit off of the chalk here in this game, you could pair him up with Lamar Jackson, and that'd be a fine stack for you to do in that game, or you could stack them up with Ingram, however which way you want to go with it. So that is those are two valuable stacks right there that could actually work in this situation. And the Ravens are going to be owned, but they're not going to be as high owned as some of the other teams in this price range. Let me check out ownership right now.
I think around 6% was what we were targeting. It's so hard with the defenses really to know. Aside from the top teams, the ownership is, it's pretty, it's really difficult to get a good read on it, unless there's just some clear misprice.
I like him a little bit in this matchup. The team I liked last week, and the ownership was ridiculous in the Millie Maker, and it was my lineups were like that had this defense in it. They're pushing the top until I decided to go with the wrong darn player in the 4:00 game in my flex. Should have went with AJ Brown. What the hell? Otherwise, it would have been like a top 20 lineup. Went with freaking Sony Michel. Shit. So, but that defense was that defense.
Sony Michel kills you again.
Yeah, fuck that guy. But the guy that the defense that I used last week, and I used them a lot. It was like 15% ownership, and that's a lot for a defense. Was Tampa Bay?
Yeah,
they did really well.
Yeah, so I think
less than 1% owned.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you can get a defense, that goes, does well and is that low on. But it's so much better when there's, when like none of the defenses really perform that well, and there's only like one or two that had a good week, and you got that, those in your lineup. So I think the Ravens here are good. It's a solid option. We've talked about some of the injuries on the other side and situation there. This is going to be kind of a messy game as well with the wetness. So I think that helps out both defenses as well. And I like correlating that with the running game. So if you want to run it with Jackson and or Ingram with the Ravens defense, I think those are all good plays. So
for sure.
Rams at Arizona is our next game here. So I've got this. It's kind of a middling total, 46.5. I don't know if that's changed recently, but Rams are favored by 3. going on the road in Arizona. We've seen this kind of, play out. Rams did terrible last week. I think they're going to kind of bounce back this week here against a much easier matchup. I've got this projected that, Rams should be passing heavily here. Arizona's pretty good against defending against the rush. Haven't been as good against the pass this year. There's not a ton to love on the Arizona side of the ball against the Rams defense. I mean, we saw last week how they can be beat, so you can pretty much guarantee that Kingsbury and teams are going to be looking at that tape and figuring out how they can try to duplicate some of that success. But hard when you don't have the same kind of weapons that Baltimore does. So they do have a pretty mobile quarterback, and I think that they have they actually have pretty good talent on their running back situation, although they're probably much better pass catching running backs than they are up the gut type running backs. But I think that there's a potential situation here that they could try to exploit some of the same problems that we saw from the Rams last week. But I do expect that the Rams are going to fix a lot of those issues here, and I think that hopefully in this situation we're going to see Goff probably just passing a lot more and getting involved with the. Oh, did I say? Let me see here, because I was looking at the numbers here, and Arizona has been really shitty against the run as well as the pass. So they've been shitty all the way around. Yeah, this looks like just the total stack them all up on the Rams side kind of deal. So from a yardage perspective, it's a little bit interesting because the rushing side of things, I was looking at the match, what was it, the power rank, and for the Rams, let me see where they're coming in at 94 yards, right? So projection wise, we're showing projection of a low yardage total, but I think that that's mostly due to the fact that the Rams have just not been very successful running the ball this year, and they've just averaged out. Let me see, Rams 20. Okay, Rams, where are you? Sorry, give me a second here. Okay, here they are. Yeah, so they're right now. It looks like their offensive rushing is about 18 yards less on average than opposing teams limit their rush to. So they're running less than most teams limit, and then the Arizona run defense has been just kind of on par average, right? As far as allowed yards to the running back position. So in general, if that played out, whatever Arizona normally would allow from a running back perspective, rushing yard perspective, yardage wise, the Rams would be projected at about 20 yards less than that. Generally. So that's why that number is so low, that around 94 yards is so low. But here's one of the things, kind of situations where you think about where there's kind of inconsistencies. When you look at the points given up to the running back position for Arizona, it's really high against the running back. So it kind of tells you okay, they're not giving it up on the ground by yards, right? So they're giving up touchdowns and they're giving up passes to running backs. So, if you wanted to consider maybe there's a situation here where there's some more passing opportunity for running back for the Rams, then that's something to consider. But I guess they just haven't really shown that they're willing to do that much this year. Do you have any thoughts there? I mean, I think it's an interesting situation where we've got these kind of two conflicting statistics, that we need to consider, but I don't know. Seems like just like load up Golf with his pass catchers, Cup and Woods and
Yeah, that's going to be the way that I attack this game. I'm going to be loading it up with his pass catchers. The one, so I really like the pass catching aspects in this game for the Rams. I like Goff in this, or not Goff, but Cup in this game. Arizona's 31st against over the middle, against wide receivers over the middle. Short ranking is 32nd, so they're dead last in the league against short passes over the middle. So I really like that matchup there. And Goff get the ball to Higbee or Cup over the middle and just let them take off after the catch. So I like that. I don't mind Woods in this game either. And as a deep threat, I don't mind Cooks in this game because Arizona is 28th against the deep ball, and Cooks can get loose in the secondary, and they're 30th against the right side of the field and 29th against the left side of the field. So I'm not really worried about much about Gurley in this game as I am about. I really want that pass catching core. So
yeah, I mean, Cook's gonna be your he's your deep threat option there. He doesn't get the volume that Cup's gonna get, but or Woods for that matter, but certainly a guy that can go off for those long pass type situations. So if I like mixing him into that. I think he's pretty cheap too this week. So I actually picked him up in my season long. I'm going to play him this week instead of a couple of my other guys just due to the matchup. But I like the call there. I think Cook's the kind of more obvious play, right? He's the if you can afford him kind of guy.
on DraftKings, he's 5.2K, which is really affordable.
Is he that low?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can't be that low. Too low. You said 5.2K? Oh, you're talking about Cooks.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking. I thought you were talking about Cooper Kupp. I was like, "There's no way."
Oh no. Cup is he's 7.1.
No. Yeah, 5,200. Yeah. So he's So that's not that's not that cheap actually for Brandon Cooks. But I mean he's
Woods
in that middle
300 more at 5,500.
Yeah. So I mean you can kind of like either one of those guys. They're all in that same kind of mix that you're going to be considering for guys like Sammy Watkins and Slayton and Alshon Jeffrey and stuff like that. So I think they're all kind of in that mix. But Westbrook, there's several guys in that mix that I like all of them. I'll probably mix in that pretty evenly across all of those guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to fit a lot of those 5K, 5,500 kind of guys. That's the range you really want to be in this week because there's not a ton down in that like sub 4K range that looks at all attractive. So, you got to get above 5K, and it's really, really hard to get those guys, and play any studs this week. So,
right.
I'm gonna have to really play around with it to see how I can do that because I want to play a decent amount of those guys in that middle range there, but sure. I don't want to sacrifice some of those bigger plays. All right. Well, yeah, I think that I guess with the big news here, right? And so with what's his name, Everett out, We've got basement price, I think, like
2,500.
2,500, bottom of the barrel price for Tyler Higbee. He's going to be pretty chalk. This is cheat code Arizona defense, right? 32nd ranked against tight ends this season. Just been terrible against them, and this is the guy, right? Like, this is the guy that should be catching the passes for them. And you can get him at 2,500. I can't see how this guy is going to be less than 25% owned on the slate. It's scary, probably how high owned that guy is going to be. Let me see, where are we projecting it? I bet it's going to be wrong, but what do you think ownership wise here? Because I'm guessing over 25%.
Yeah, he is going to be, especially since the news has already come out that Everett's going to be out. So our projection right now is 1.4%. That's not going to be there. He is going to be.
No way. Yeah, there's
he
no
could
way.
be pushing 30%.
Yeah, there's no way.
Week.
Yeah, I think that when we've seen situations like this before, it's been super high owned. Now, I guess I'll caution, right? Anytime that there's a situation, especially in with a tight end position, wide receiver positions, these super chalk type situations, there's always a good reason to fade those high ownership super chalk plays in GPP tournaments. You can get a massive leg up on the competition by pivoting off of those guys and going with a different option, because there's such high variance positions. There's an outcome where Higbee gets you 0 this week. And there's a variance to where he gets you 25 points.
Yeah.
But you can definitely be low owned on this guy and feel good about that decision, just due to the super high ownership, right?
For sure.
So I'll put that out there. It's a tournament only type of situation. This guy should probably be a lock button in your cash games. But I think that's probably where you go. I kind of want to play some of the higher priced tight ends this week in a couple lineups that I'm constructing. Like, I want to get some Kelseys and stuff like that. So I might end up having to run a couple double tight end stacks in order to do that. But that he might afford me that ability to do like a Higbee Kelsey stack with or a Higbee Kelsey lineup, so that I can get not totally have a crappy rest of my lineup. So I'll probably bump up my percent. I usually limit my double tight ends to about 10% or lower most weeks. So I might allow a little bit higher this week, because I think that there's a decent amount of tight ends that are in that low end spectrum that I wouldn't mind having in there that can give me more salary at the rest of my positions. But anyhow, let's keep going. What do we got here? So we talked about Rams. So we got Chargers at Denver.
So one thing that just came across.
Oh, we got a new hot news take here.
Yeah, it came across. Drew Lock is going to make his first NFL start on Sunday against the Chargers.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, so this is interesting. Chargers defense, right? I think is I was looking at Denver defense at one point until that news came out, and then I was like, oh man, I don't want to play a defense for with a rookie quarterback that could be given the ball up on their 20-yard line kind of situation where it's one of the things you have to think about when you play defenses is how bad their offense is, because even if they have a good defense and can create turnovers and whatnot, if their offense is giving up the ball and putting them in really bad positions where giving them opportunities to score, it makes it impossible for those defenses to do really well because they're constantly getting scored on due to the bad field position. So it's something that I sometimes forget when I'm looking at these teams. Like, oh, this is the team's playing at home and they're good situation, and Chargers have been throwing interceptions like 10 times in the last 3 games and whatever. I want to play that, and then Drew Lock starts for them and throws like fumbles the ball 10 times or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, so I think that it's I don't know if it's a downgrade or lateral move or whatever. Like, they've already were in a bad situation, right? Because of who was their quarterback before that? Was what's his face? Somebody I can't even remember. Jesus, what's the guy's name? The guy I don't want to play. Denver. I don't even have him in Dom Station. He's that bad.
Is it Tim Patrick or something like that?
You're cutting out there. I'm sorry, what?
Was it Tim Patrick?
No, I'll pull it up here. Allen.
Okay.
Brandon Allen, right, was the guy.
Oh, yeah, that guy's terrible.
Yeah. So like, this was already going to be a kind of a crappy situation there for them. Like, I guess he played since week 9, right? So like, this guy's been off the fantasy radar like solidly ever since he started. But against Cleveland 17 points, Minnesota 14 points, and Buffalo like not good, right? And so they're bringing in this Drew Lock. They're going to give him a run. Probably they're out of playoff contention, whatever. They're probably checking this other kid out. Who knows what's going on there? It's kind of a messy situation. It basically has me off of the whole, like, all of the offensive weapons, I think, for Denver. I like, I think the only play here is Chargers defense and some of the Chargers weapons. It might be something where I'm a bit more interested in the running backs for the Chargers, maybe. In that situation.
Yeah, I do like in this spot to see a good run in this game.
So yeah, Eckler is right now projecting at pretty low ownership. So I think he's definitely an interesting play. I like him price point wise here. He's quite a bit lower than Melvin Gordon. He's still getting a deep volume, basically like a receiver for them, back to that kind of role. So I think we can project him at pretty good passes each week. He's just not going to get the volume that he got on the ground like he did earlier in the season, and so he's got to make up for that with just the pass volume. I'm a little bit concerned here. The only thing that has me a little concerned about Eckler is that if they get in a situation where they run up the score against Denver, that like if they're leading this game the whole time, then Melvin Gordon's going to be in there more often. But I don't know. You have any concerns on that side of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that concern in this game because Melvin Gordon's been getting pretty good run and he's been getting touch share. Let me see what the difference is, but it's Melvin Gordon's going to get his in this game, and it's just something that you have to be, it's something that's going to come out. But Eckler has also gotten his fair share of touches, and he's been in the end zone. So over the last couple of weeks with Gordon back, so it's tough to say moving forward with this, but I do like Eckler in this spot, though. He could have a really good game, and but we shall see.
Yeah, I mean he's coming off of a 12 target game against Kansas City. Now, of course, they were behind that game, so it makes sense that he was getting a lot more work. I think that I'll have to think about that one a little bit more. I was like pretty interested in Eckler, but I don't know if this situation. I don't really know if it's changed that much, to be honest, with the quarterback change. I think that it's still pretty low volume, or just like a low scoring kind of situation for Denver, period.
Right.
I mean, they do still have a pretty good defense, and they do limit opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers pretty well. Their cornerback coverage is good. Their secondary is good. They limit the quarterback. So, and Rivers has just been horrific the last few weeks. Just like an interception machine. I think he's got like 7 interceptions last 2 games. So I think that there is definitely some opportunity here for Denver to turn the ball or to get the ball from Rivers in this situation. So this could be a lot of turnovers back and forth here in Denver. We also there was some news about some weather as well in Denver, so that's something to keep an eye on as well that may influence this game. So keep that in mind. One of the areas, though, to maybe consider if you don't want to play any of the running back situation for the Chargers is the tight end. I mean, I keep going back to the tight end positions, but Denver has been more susceptible against the tight end recently than really any of the other positions. So I think that you can run Henry here with some confidence, but I don't know that I really like any of their other passing options other than Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Hunter Henry's in a good spot here. I like it. I like that it's going to be a low own play, and so that's going to pique my interest more on him. And
if I run Henry, I'm probably going to stack him with oh, sorry, I'm cutting you out. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I like Henry here. It's a good spot. But yeah, I could see Noah Fant in running it with the defense in this one.
No, yeah. What I was saying was running Henry with the Chargers defense potentially.
Oh yeah, that'll work too. That's a good one, especially because it's Drew Lock's first game.
Especially with this rookie first game. So something to consider there. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Last game on the slate. We've got Cleveland at Pittsburgh. This is unfortunate, really, is what this is, that they have to play each other 2 weeks later. It's a really odd schedule. There's a couple of these teams that have like basically back-to-back games against the division rivals. But this is doubly unfortunate due to the whole Rudolph situation, right? The helmet smashing and whatnot. And we've got both teams are going to be without some of their key players due to that incident, and also due to some injuries. So Myles Garrett's out. We've got Pouncey's out. There's a whole bunch of news and notes here. Let's see here. Browns, let's see, left tackle Greg Robinson's out due to concussion. We've got Demarius Randall will miss due to a coaching decision, quote unquote. Not sure what's going on there, but he didn't travel with the team. Like, the Browns are in complete disarray right now. Like, they so much so that it sounds like Njoku is healthy, but they said you're not playing. We're trying to figure some shit out, and that was what he got told. Like, what?
Yeah, it's
I don't
not. It's
know.
not good. This whole game is not good. I don't like this game at all. I'm going to be completely off of this game.
Oh my god, it's a mess. Yeah. So, geez, let me see what other news we have around this thing. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention this, but Von Miller is going to be like a 50-50 to play. So for the Denver game. So in case that influences anybody's interest in playing the like Philip Lindsay probably helps out Rivers and Lindsay with Von Miller out. He's like one of the best pass rushers for Denver. So definitely a downgrade for the Denver defense if he's not in there.
Yep.
Anyways, I don't know if I have any other updates on the guys who are out for this game, but like, yeah, they're definitely going to be out on both the offensive line and defensive line side of things on both sides of the ball. Yeah, the Demarius Randall thing is an odd thing as well, so I'm not really sure what to make of that. But yeah, not having their safety in there is an impact, I think, as well to the Browns defense. I don't know. You kind of want to like. I had some interest in playing Cleveland defense here at their price point. And I think that there's still potentially an okay play. I think that this is going to be a pretty dirty match. And I don't know that there's going to be a ton of scoring done here. But it's not one that I have a whole lot of confidence in just due to a number of injuries and people that are out for defense. I think that they're going to be in a pretty weakened state. And so even a pretty crappy Pittsburgh offense right now without Juju Smith-Schuster, he is out with the Hodge is going to be their quarterback. So at least they're not playing Rudolph. But Hodge is, I guess they're saying is a better quarterback or has played better or whatever. Like, I don't know. For me, it's about the same, about the same. The only guy that like maybe piques my interest a little bit. Well, people have been talking about playing Benny Snells. I don't really have much interest in it. I think he's a talented back actually, but he doesn't. He's a good running kind of running back, but he doesn't. I've watched him play a bit and. I like his, I think he could be good for this team, but he's still a little bit underdeveloped, I think, for the NFL. And he's not catching any passes, so he's not a very versatile kind of guy. I like him in good matchups. I think that you could make a case for him with some of the injuries on the Cleveland side of the ball that he could actually produce here. But they need to be put into scoring situations, to make that happen, because he's going to have to get touchdowns for you, at least one. And he's going to, what you want from a guy like that is you want him to break 100 yards and to get a touchdown, and he's a smash play, right? So, but it's a borderline play for me for him to both break 100 and get a touchdown. I think I could see it coming up where he doesn't do either one and he gets you 9 weeks, right? So, it's a borderline play. I think you can mix him in a bit here. I'll probably have some ownership of him, but I'm going to be probably having the field on the ownership of that. of wherever
Right.
the field is on him. The other guy, Washington, right? I think you could play Washington a little bit. He's shown a bit of rapport with Hodge. He's been better recently. Deontay Johnson sort of faded into non-existence, so not really sure what else there is here in this game. On the Cleveland side, I don't know. You tell me.
I'm not outside of Chubb. Not really all that interested in this game from the Cleveland side of the ball. Pittsburgh's defense, they're pretty good on the receiving side. So it's pretty much Chubb or nothing for me on this game. But yeah, it's just the total's just not there for me in terms of Vegas. It's just not total that I like. But
yeah,
have to see what the weather looks like too. That could have an impact on this game. I just see it as second time they played. They're gonna have already seen each other once, so it's just gonna be slugfest type thing like it always is. So I don't see too much fantasy greatness, but we saw it last week. The fantasy greatness came out last week, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is a challenging one to play. I mean, I think you can make some case for a few of these guys. Chubb's interesting. The fact that Chubb that is just giving up too many of the passing options now to what's his face? Kareem Hunt, thank you. Is like Hunt's gotten like something like 10 targets now, or 10 passes thrown his way. So he's getting like third most catches on the team now to Odell Beckham, Landry, and now it's like Odell Beckham, Landry, and Hunt. So he's like their third receiver.
Yeah.
On that team, and yeah, I mean that's like a huge like like now Chubb is like basically like a Derrick Henry kind of running back. He doesn't have that volume, the pass volume that turned him into like the every down kind of guy that we saw early in the season. So there's only specific situations I really want to play a guy like that, and it's only ones that I think he can just completely smash. And I don't think that's this game this week, right, particularly for me. But he's one of those guys that can always break like an 80-yard thing, and just go. So yeah, there's always risk in not playing a guy like that. Derrick Henry's kind of the same way, right? Where like if he can break that secondary, into the secondaries and just he can beat those those defenders when it comes to a running match. They're fast running backs, but
Sure.
yeah. So I don't have a whole lot of interest. He's too pricey, and I'd rather just try to pay for some of these other guys and or pay down and take a higher price receiver or something like that. So
for sure,
probably where I'm going to go with my money. All right, cool. We covered that. I don't have any other games on the slate. We've got a shortened slate due to Thanksgiving, so I think we covered all these pretty good. Let me see if there was a question. Keenan Allen cheap? Yeah.
So not cheap on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's. We might be talking about FanDuel here. So yeah, I think he's priced at. Bring him up. He's not super cheap. Yeah, he is 6,500. So he's up there with the guy. Yeah, he's lower priced than like Cooper Kupp and Godwin and Tyreek Hill and stuff like that. But for the for basically what he's been doing, volume wise, like he's probably maybe a bit cheaper per like kind of like catch and stuff like that. But you can get some guys that maybe are a bit cheaper, kind of in that like mid 5K range that I like maybe a little bit better than Keenan Allen this week. Well, the one thing with Keenan Allen is that he's going to be going against one of the better cornerbacks in the league with Charles, the
Chris
third,
Harris.
whatever, or Chris Harris third. Sorry, yeah, CH3, so he's got probably one of the tougher match. So that's probably why you might consider like not playing him, but Keenan Allen, he gets a ton of volume thrown his way. He can turn any week into a big play week. He's been really bad fantasy wise for like weeks now. Like he had a decent week last week, like around 20 points, but really paying 7,000 for a wide receiver in these tournaments, we want to get closer to 25 points to 30 points out of those kind of guys. And he's done that early in the season, right, where he put up 30 points or 45 points or something like that in the smash games. But outside of that, he's been pretty sketchy. So
that's because of Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Henry came back, and we got Melvin Gordon in there. So all of a sudden, we've got Eckler, Henry, Mike Williams. Like there's like too many passing options, right? And so like all of those passes that were going to Keenan Allen, where he was getting tons of volume, started getting spread out. Now, he got 12 targets last week, and the week before he got I think 11 targets, and then he was 4 right the week before that, and then 10. So like, yeah, he has like these high volume weeks, but even like if you look at those weeks, Tennessee 11 targets, 4 catches, 10 points, 10 targets, 7 catches, 12 points. Like his like average depth of target and like total yardage are low. Like unless he breaks one loose. Like even last week, right? 12 targets, 8 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown, right?
Yep.
That's not great.
No.
Like for that volume, like he should be smashing with 12 targets. You throw 12 targets at Michael Thomas or Chris Godwin or what, like they're getting you a lot. Like let's see what Godwin did last week. 8 targets, 7 catches, 184 yards, right?
Yeah, 40.
So, Mike Evans, let's see what he does with his volume. Okay, so he's been low volume last 3 weeks, right? So 6, 8 targets. He caught 4 each week, and he's had shitty performances. But when he got 12, 16, 17 targets, 20 points, 45 points, 39 points, right? Like, so when you get that much volume, we expect you to produce. And if you can't do that consistently, then I'm not super interested in playing you week to week, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd much rather play Keenan Allen when he has a good cornerback matchup than on a week like this that he's got a really tough one. So,
he's a
but I don't mind. Yeah. At least that's my take on it. Okay. Wrap it up. You want to do any last minute wrap up things? I know we've probably been pretty long here.
I think we pretty much covered everything.
All right, cool. What's your favorite let's say kind of low ownership play for wide receivers this week?
For wide receiver,
let's say punt play, low cost. Like where's the lowest priced wide receiver you think you're going to go at least 10% ownership? You're going to take at least 10% ownership of.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think maybe my lowest is going to be.
See, I'll tell you what mine is here.
Haven't really built too many lineups this week, but I could see myself getting 10% out of like Auden Tate or something at 3,800. I could see 10% of Curtis Samuel this week, something like that. So yeah, Curtis Samuel's $1,000 more, but you know, I could definitely see that. Something
Okay.
like that.
One guy that we didn't talk about that I actually would have a little bit of interest in is Kelvin Harmon for Washington. With what's his face out this week, Richardson. Any interest in Harmon? He's I think he's pretty cheap here. I think he's like 3,600. So yeah, 3,600 on DraftKings. He's gotten 6 targets in the last 2 games against Jets and Detroit. He hasn't done too much with it, 10 points and 7 points last week. But just had like I'm looking for some value. Like I'm looking for a guy that I can pay down for, so I can afford some of these higher priced players. And he was a guy that was kind of popping off around that low end spectrum of like low, mid.
Six targets last 2 weeks. It's worth a shot for sure. That's what we like to see is volume. So yeah, I could see it.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, somebody to look at. I was trying to look at a few of those other like low price guys. I guess one guy that I might consider in that like low 4 range is Nelson Aguilar in that Philly game against Miami. I don't mind him. I'm not sure if I want to get up to like 10% on any of these guys though. Like they're still like 5%ers, I think, to me. The problem is that I don't know how many 5%ers I need to have to fill out 150 lineups, because the rest of my lineups are going to look pretty shitty, I think, if I can't punt fairly low at a couple of these spots. So I wish we could there was like one like sub 4K play that was like a good solid play this week, but I can't find it yet.
Yeah,
Harmon's the closest thing I have to it right now. I looked at that Marcus Johnson for Colts, but he kind of was a bust last week against Houston. So I don't know. He could get you a 0.
Oh yeah.
But with Hilton out, I thought that might be an option. But I think that it's probably too risky. Anyhow, okay, cool. Well, we're gonna cut it off there, guys. I know we went long. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. And let's see, is there any chat? Auden Tate, cheap wide receiver. Yeah, Auden Tate is in there. He's a cheap guy. We talked about him in the Cincinnati lineup, so definitely worth a couple shares, I think. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. You guys have a good night. Burns, always great talking with you. Good luck.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.